Ella Porter was told not to embarrass her brother on graduation night. Not because she had done anything wrong, because Mason had finally been chosen for something. Her parents bought him a new Navy suit. They took photos of him in the driveway. They posted about how proud they were that their son had earned a college scholarship interview. Ella stood behind the camera. Nobody posted the girl who had tutored Mason for 2 years. Nobody posted the girl who wrote practice essays after midnight. Nobody posted the girl whose own college application sat unfinished because she was busy fixing her brother's future. Then, at senior awards night, Mason walked on stage to accept the biggest scholarship in the district. He smiled like the story belonged to him. But before the check was handed over, the committee chair said they would play a short interview clip from the student who had truly completed the work. And when the screen lit up behind him, Mason's smile disappeared. Because the voice in the interview was not his. It was Ella's. Ella and Mason Porter were twins, but their parents treated them like proof that 2 children could be born on the same day and still live in different families. Mason was the event. Football games, pep rallies, new cleats, photos on the fridge. Ella was the system. She packed lunches when their mother, Diane, worked late. She reminded Mason about tests. She covered for him when their father, Paul, asked why his grades dropped. She sat across from him at the dining table and turned his half-finished sentences into homework he could turn in. Mason was not stupid. That made it worse. He was charming enough to avoid effort, and everyone around him called that potential. When Ella earned straight A's, Paul said, "That is just how you are." When Mason passed chemistry with a C+, Diane cried in the parking lot and said, "He worked so hard." Ella learned not to wait for applause. By senior year, Mason needed a scholarship. Not because his grades deserved one, because Paul had promised relatives that Mason would play college ball. And Mason had lost his final season after treating practice like something he could charm his way through. Diane found the Harrington Community Scholarship online. It was not for athletes. It was for leadership, service, and academic impact. Mason closed the laptop after reading the essay prompt. Ella opened it again after everyone went to bed. The essay prompt asked applicants to describe a moment when they helped someone else move forward. Ella wrote about the tutoring room, not the pretty version, the real one. The room beside the library where students came embarrassed and left breathing easier. The blue notebook where Ella tracked who needed algebra, who needed grammar, who needed someone to say they were not dumb. The nights she sat with Mason after practice, while he complained, checked his phone, and asked why school made everything so hard. She did not write it to submit for Mason. She wrote it because Ms. Alvarez, her English teacher, had told her she should apply too. But the next morning, Mason found the draft on the family computer. By dinner, Diane had read it. "This is perfect for your brother," she said. Ella thought she had misheard. Paul leaned back in his chair. "Mason needs a win right now." Ella said, "It is my essay." Mason shrugged. "It is about helping people. You helped me, so technically I am in it." That was when Ella felt the first real crack. Diane softened her voice, which always meant she was about to ask for something unfair. "Just let him use the structure. You can write another one. Writing is easy for you." Easy. The word landed harder than shouting, because easy was what people called your work when they wanted to take it without guilt. Mason submitted the essay. 2 days later, Ella knew because he left the confirmation page open. He had changed the first paragraph. He had changed "my brother" to "students like my sister." He had changed the blue tutoring notebook into "my leadership binder." He had not changed the story about the night a student cried over a failed math test. That was Ella's night, her student, her hand holding the tissue box. When Ella confronted him, Mason said, "Do you want me to lose everything over words?" Paul heard the argument and stepped between them. "Enough, Ella. Mason already lost his final season. He needs tonight more than you do. Ella looked at Diane. He lost it because Coach Miller benched him after he skipped conditioning twice and showed up unprepared. That was not tragedy. That was choice. Diane's face tightened. This is not the time to punish your brother for being disappointed. That sentence did something ugly. It made Ella realize her parents did not see Mason stealing. They saw Mason surviving, and they saw Ella as the place he was allowed to take from. The week before, awards night, the scholarship committee named Mason a finalist. Diane bought him a new suit. Paul polished his shoes. They asked Ella to take pictures in the driveway. Mason posted one. Caption, "Big night ahead. Grateful for everyone who believed I could still do something bigger." Ella saw it from her room. Her phone stayed silent. Then Diane knocked. "Do not bring up the essay tomorrow," she said. "Let him have this." Ella asked. "Have what?" Diane looked annoyed, as if the answer were obvious. "A moment." Ella almost laughed, because Mason had collected moments his whole life. Ella had collected proof. The auditorium was full by 7. Parents carried flowers. The scholarship table sat beside the stage with envelopes lined up like small white doors. Ella wore a simple black dress she had already worn twice that year. Mason wore the navy suit and smiled at every adult who said, "Your parents must be proud." Diane saved 3 seats near the front. One for herself, one for Paul, one for Mason after he returned from the stage. Ella stood in the aisle holding her own program. "Can I sit with you?" she asked. Paul glanced at the seats, then at Mason. "There is not enough room with the camera bag. Find a seat with your friends." There it was, the quiet version of being erased. Ella sat 3 rows back beside Ms. Alvarez. Her teacher did not ask what happened. She only handed Ella a folded tissue and whispered, "Stay through the whole ceremony." That was strange. Ella turned toward her. Ms. Alvarez looked at the stage. "Just stay." Halfway through the program, the principal announced the Harrington Community Scholarship. Mason straightened his jacket. Diane raised her phone. Paul stood before anyone asked him to. The committee chair, Dr. Reynolds, stepped to the microphone. "This year," she said, "we added one final review step. Each finalist submitted a short interview and a process folder so the committee could understand the work behind the essay." Mason's smile tightened. Ella felt her stomach drop. The screen behind Dr. Reynolds turned blue. Then Mason appeared. He sat in the school media room, eyes too confident. A recorded voice asked, "Tell us about the blue tutoring notebook you mentioned in your essay." Mason blinked. "The binder," he said. "The notebook," the interviewer corrected. "You wrote that you tracked student needs by color. Green for math confidence, yellow for essay structure, red for students who were close to giving up." Mason smiled too wide. "Right. Yeah. That was just a system I made." The interviewer asked, "Can you name one student from the notebook whose progress changed how you think about service?" Mason looked off camera. In the auditorium, the silence changed shape. It went from polite to aware. On the screen, Mason laughed. "There were a lot. I do not want to violate privacy." Dr. Reynolds let the clip freeze. Then she said, "The committee requested verification from the tutoring room." A second clip played. Ella appeared on the screen, not dressed for a stage, not ready for attention. The interviewer asked, "Why did you start tracking students by color?" Ella answered quietly, "Because some people need math help, and some people need someone to notice they are ashamed. If I only tracked grades, I would miss the real problem." No one moved. Diane slowly lowered her phone. Mason's face on stage had gone pale. Dr. Reynolds continued. The essay submitted under Mason Porter's name contained several passages that matched Ella Porter's tutoring portfolio, school document history, and recorded interview responses. A murmur rolled through the auditorium. Ella could hear her own heartbeat. Then Dr. Reynolds said, the line that split the night open. The Harrington Scholarship will not be awarded to a copied version of service. It will be awarded to the student who did the work. She turned toward the audience. Ella Porter. For a second, Ella did not stand. Not because she was weak, because every part of her had been trained to make someone else comfortable first. Ms. Alvarez touched her shoulder. Go. Ella walked past the row where her parents sat. Diane whispered, Ella, wait. Paul reached slightly, then stopped when people turned. Mason stood frozen beside the podium, the navy suit suddenly looking too big. Ella climbed the steps. Dr. Reynolds handed her the envelope. This belongs with your name on it, she said. The auditorium applauded, not the roaring kind. The stunned kind that grows when people realize they just witnessed something unfair get corrected in real time. Ella looked out at the crowd. She did not look at Mason first. She looked at the empty seat her parents had refused to give her. Then she looked at the blue notebook on the screen. When the microphone came toward her, Ella did not give a long speech. She said one sentence. I did not want my brother to fail. I just wanted people to stop calling my work his second chance. That was all, and it was enough. Mason walked off stage before the next award. Diane followed him. Paul stayed seated with both hands locked together. Ella returned to her seat beside Ms. Alvarez. This time nobody asked her to hold the camera. The next morning, Mason deleted the driveway post. Diane posted nothing. Paul knocked on Ella's door and said, we need to talk about how last night made the family look. Ella opened the door, just wide enough to be polite. No, she said. You need to talk about why it happened. Paul had no answer. That summer, Ella used the Harrington Scholarship deposit to secure her dorm. Ms. Alvarez helped her finish the paperwork her parents kept delaying. The tutoring room gave her the blue notebook as a graduation gift. On the first page, one student had written, "You made me feel less stupid before you made me better at math." Ella kept that line longer than any apology she never received. Mason eventually enrolled at a local college, not as a star, not as a story, just as a student who finally had to turn in his own work. And Ella, she did not become loud. She became unavailable for theft. So I want to ask you, if your family kept giving your work to the favorite child, would you expose it in public or stay silent and let them keep the lie?